nimme yalon ko be sulala kana sorula fasurwa kannen fo mandika kannen headphone ni microphone be mol bulu albe jela nali al karajibe al saate bulu ni channel 1 ma o mo mandinkalati ni tara channel 2 wala mu surwa kamati abe kala ñami mbokk yi di leen nuyu benn announcement bu ndaw lañ fi am di yëgal mbooloo mi ne dañooy interpret waxtaan bi tey képp ki nga xam ne da ngay soxla interpretation moo nekk maanaam di ko jottali rek am na ñu fi nekk si mbooloo mi ñu ngi amee headphones nga waxtaan ak ñoom dinañ la ko jox ba pare ñu won la noo koy kiiyee so jërë ngeen jëf xibaar boobu lañ leen amaloon thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I have the pleasure to announce the arrival of the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly and His Lordship, the Chief Justice of the Republic of the Gambia. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, any moment from now, we anticipate the arrival of the President. As a result, we will urge everybody to kindly take your seat while the President makes his entrance. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome His Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. With your kind permission, thank you very much and welcome, Your Excellency. With your kind permission, I would like to urge members of this august gathering to remain standing while we observe the national anthem. Gambia Police Band, please. Thank you very much, the Gambia Police Band, for that brilliant rendition of the national anthem. Thank you. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Your Lord the Chief Justice, leaders of political parties present, Honorable Cabinet Ministers, Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, permanent secretaries, service chiefs, managing directors, and other senior government officials present here, representatives of civil society organizations, regional governors, venerable leaders, Paramount Chief Sefolu and Alkalulu, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mfalli Fadera. I am the head of brand and communication for the Gambia OIC Secretariat. I am deeply honored, Your Excellency, distinguished guests, to be asked to moderate the sessions of this historic national occasion. To assist me this morning in emceeing this occasion is ex-broadcaster and journalist Aissatou Keita, who will take over from me later on in the program. As it is customary in this country, we will begin the solemn function by invoking God's mercy and guidance with prayers, commencing with Alhaji Esa Fode Dabo, the President of the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, to be followed by the Most Reverend Bani Manga. Ya Imam, Bismillah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إسرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم اجعل بلادنا آمنة مطمئنة وسائر بلاد المسلمين يا رب العالمين سبحان ربك رب العزة ما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you very much, Ya Imam. I now call on His Most Reverend Bani Manga to lead us in Christian prayers.
Please, let's continue in prayer. Great God of nations, we thank you for the Republic of the Gambia, and we thank you for our part in it. Gracious God, against all odds, you have helped us by your grace so that we will become a nation as we are. We pray that in our celebration of our 59th anniversary and in our national dialogues, you will help us so to be more matured and to be more responsible. You will help us to be more inclusive, and you will help us so to seek for the common good of all people. We pray that the words of our national motto, peace, progress, and prosperity, will so be ratified in our midst and in our generation. Bless all of us as Gambians, and bless all who participate in the life of the Gambia, that in this meeting, begun, continued, and ended, you alone will be glorified, and it will be for the good and betterment of this nation. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Manga. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here today to mark the historic occasion of the National Dialogue Day as part of this year's Independence Day commemoration of our beloved country, the Republic of the Gambia. The theme for this year's National Dialogue is collective responsibility of preserving the nation, safeguarding the state, and securing our resources. Today's public forum was preceded by a series of stakeholder consultations involving Gambians of all creed and colors from all walks of life. The initial consultative dialogue was led by His Excellency the President, and it involved the country's political elite, including leaders of all political parties and key institutions in the country. A stakeholders forum on various themes followed, culminating into today's event, which is the public forum, which is the penultimate activity of the National Dialogue exercise. The National Dialogue or national dialogues are used as tools to manage complex change processes and often includes a broader range of national stakeholders in an effort to address a broad range of issues. In the early 90s, Nelson Mandela South Africa held a series of national consultative engagements, also known as national dialogues, as it seeks to establish a multi-party democracy following the horrors of the repressive apartheid regime. In 2013, in Tunisia, following the so-called Arab Spring, a quartet of unions, employers, lawyers, and human rights advocates stepped up to facilitate a national dialogue between the country's divided political elites. Several post-Soviet countries and many more African countries engage in various forms of national dialogues as they move to embrace and encourage inclusivity and popular participation in governance during transitions. I guess you can see where I'm heading with this. National dialogues are not new in Africa, neither around the world. Perhaps what is different in Gambia's case is that it is self-initiated by the government in power, the government inviting critics and cheerers to scrutinize the state of affairs in its desire to move our beloved motherland to the promised land. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a moment and commend and applaud our government under the leadership of His Excellency, President Adama Barrow, for having the foresight and courage to organize this historic, all-inclusive national conversation. Equally, let us recognize the graciousness and sense of patriotism demonstrated by all political leaders in embracing and fully participating in this national endeavor at all levels. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, thanks and appreciation goes to the National Preparatory Committee for a job well done, and deserving special mention is Ami Bojan Sisoho, my former boss, who I am aware firsthand have been pushing for this national dialogue initiative from the very beginning when we worked together in 2018. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with that said, let me take you through the program for the day. We have done the protocols of the arrivals, and His Excellency is seated. Police band rendered the national anthem, and we've also observed our religious prayers. Next to follow will be Chairperson's remark by Mr. John Charles Njai, the Chairperson of the National Preparatory Committee, to be followed by a statement from His Lordship Chief Justice Hassan B. Jallo, a statement from the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Fabakary T. Jata, and the keynote address will be delivered by His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Adama Barrow. Today's activities are divided into 3 sessions. The statement of the President will conclude the first session, and the second session will be reflections on the thematic areas that have been discussed in the past week. This will be in the form of a panel discussion, and we'll have various panelists to discuss various topics. And the third half of the program would also include panel discussion from keynote panelists that have been identified carefully from both the public and private sectors. And that should be it for the rest of the program. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor and privilege Thank you very much, Madam Ami Bojang. I've been notified that part of the program also includes religious reflections from our venerable leaders, religious leaders here present, and that will begin with Alhaji Esa Fode Dabo, the President of the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, and will be followed by Most Reverend Bani Manga. Ya Imam, Bismillah. Kindly give him a round of applause, please, as he walks to the podium.
Technology. Okay, saya ini command ditarik. Itu commandingan. Okay, let.
We were having some experience in a technical glitch. Consequently, yeah, Imam has agreed for the Most Reverend Bani Manga to commence with his reflections, and he will follow right after. Please join me to welcome the Most Reverend Bani Manga.
Good morning, Your Excellency. I stand on existing protocols. Recently, we had Gambia playing with Cameroon. Who was a Gambian whose heart was not beating when we went 2-1 and within a few minutes they scored us? Is there any Gambian who was happy? I am told, Mr. President, you watch Arsenal. I will not speak any further. When they scored the third goal, I immediately changed my profile picture on my WhatsApp. And all those who were watching my WhatsApp, I had calls all over the world, would say to me, "Are you praying or are you watching football?" That is what, for me, represented this country. We all are Gambians. In that national field, there was no one who was called Manjago. There was no one who was called Cyril. There was no one who was called Mandinka. There was no one who was called Christian. There was no one who was called Muslim. What we had was the Gambia national team. Today, the Gambia that is continuing to grow is not the Gambia that we knew yesterday. The Gambia we knew yesterday is a Gambia in which we all look at ourselves and are very proud that you're a Gambian. You're very proud that you share a common heritage with people. You're very proud that you hold the same ethos. You hold and share the same national anthem. You know, when we were singing the national anthem, I saw the chairman of the IEC do the sign of the scout. And I was like, so INSEF he joined, right? That's the Gambia we know. My friends, I am a very scared person in this nation. I'm a very scared person in this nation because by my tribe, I happen to be Jola. I don't speak Jola. I was brought up in the Combos. And so when I say to the people in the Combos, I'm Jola, they will say, for where? Can you speak it? No, you are not. When I go to Fonyi and I say, I'm Jola, they say, where have you come from? I said, Sarakunda. They say, that is not a Jola area. So where do I belong? Am I a Jola or am I not a Jola? I think I'm a Jola, even though I don't speak it. The truth of the matter is, yes, you would wish me to speak the language. But if I cannot speak the language, it is your responsibility to help me become a good Jola. What am I saying? It is our responsibility, all of us collectively, to teach this generation and the generation that is to come what it means to be Gambian. And what does it mean to be Gambian? It means that you and I will look at ourselves in the face and tell ourselves, for the Gambia, we will ever be true. And that is why our national pledge will say, it is the combination of government and the people working together for the common good of our nation. May God help us as we move this nation forward so that you and I will continue to be a proud Gambian. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, the Most Reverend Manga. Ya Imam, Bismillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I apologize for your time that was wasted because of the technology. Members of the high table, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Alhamdulillah, I thank the Almighty Allah for this important forum which brought together all the stakeholders to discuss major issues that affect our lives as a nation. I want to congratulate and thank His Excellency, the President, for initiating this national dialogue. We need to come together, work together, discuss our differences in order to achieve national unity, peaceful coexistence, prosperity, and national security. Our religion, Islam, calls for unity and warns against division and conflict. The Almighty Allah says, وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Meaning, and do not dispute with one another, or you will be fail and weaken. It is natural to have differences in our lives because the Almighty Allah has created us in different appearances, different opinions. So we cannot be in one side in everything. That is contrary to Allah's creation. But these differences should be a difference of diversity, not a difference of opposite. So we need a constructive dialogue to communicate to each other, put our differences on the table to build understanding and consensus. It is the ethic of dialogue to respect the other opinion according to the rule that says, my opinion is correct and may be wrong, and the opposite opinion is wrong but may be correct. Let us respect each other and avoid personal attacking. Islam urges us also, which is very, very important, and is affecting our society, the type of information that we spread in the society. Islam urges us to authenticate the information that we spread, to avoid spreading false information that affect our development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to conclude by saying that all of us are Gambians, regardless of our religion, race, dwelling places, tribes, and we have no place but this homeland, which is the Gambia. So let us all collaborate together to build, protect, and preserve our nation. On that note, I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Let us come together, build, preserve, and protect our nation. Wonderful remarks by the chairperson of the president of the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council. He also said we need to come together and discuss our differences in order to unite and prosper and secure our national resources and our beautiful country, the Gambia. Thank you so much, Ya Imam. I now have the honor, most respectfully, to invite the chairperson of the National Preparatory Committee to deliver his statement, and I've been corrected to say that is Maud K. Cisse, the chairperson of the National Preparatory Committee, and not John Charles Njai. Mr. Chairperson, please welcome to deliver your remarks.
Good morning, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of the Gambia, Adama Barrow, the Chief Justice, and the Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly. Good morning to you all. Good morning also to distinguished political party leaders, senior government officials, honorable ministers, and all attendees who have found time to attend this important national dialogue. Mine is basically to thank everyone, most especially the President for commissioning and initiating this particular dialogue process, but also the National Organizing Committee for taking all this while, for putting together this beautiful and quite successful dialogue. I would also single out Auntie Ami, the Director of Press and Public Relations, Office of the President, for leading this process. All these days, she have been having sleepless nights. And on behalf of the organizing committee and on behalf of His Excellency, I want to also thank him, thank her. I will be short. I would only pray for successful deliberation of this national dialogue, and we pray and hope that after the dialogue, we will see a better Gambia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Maud K. Cisse, the Chairperson of the National Preparatory Committee, also the Chief of Staff, Office of the President. I now invite His Lordship, Chief Justice Hassan B. Jallo, to share his reflections on the theme of the occasion. Please give him a round of applause as he walked to the podium.
Your Excellency, Mr. Adam Barrow, President of the Republic of the Gambia, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Ministers, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished participants and guests, all other protocols observed. I wish to extend first my congratulations to His Excellency the President of the Republic of the Gambia for his laudable initiative in convening this first national dialogue in the Gambia on the theme of our collective responsibility for preserving and safeguarding the nation and securing our resources. My commendation also goes to the preparatory committee as well for so diligently and promptly implementing the directive of His Excellency the President to bring us together with the object of engaging in reflections and identifying measures that will strengthen our quest for sustained democracy, peace, and stability in the nation. Dialogue and communication is not only appropriate, but it is necessary, particularly in these challenging times, for the strengthening of national unity, national cohesion, and national solidarity. A dialogue provides us with the opportunity to listen to each other, to understand our common as well as different perspectives. It equally enables us to identify the challenges we face as a nation and to develop a consensus on what measures need to be taken to address those challenges. Differences of opinion there will always be, and it is perhaps healthy and enriching that many flowers of different hue and of different scent are allowed to bloom in the community. Pluralism is a vital and indispensable characteristic of the democratic environment. But dialogue will empower us to manage those differences of viewpoints and approaches, and it should also assist us in identifying not only differences, but also assist us to appreciate and reaffirm our shared national common values and national aspirations, and in that way, strengthen our national unity and solidarity around those values and aspirations. This may be the first, it is indeed, not maybe, it is indeed the first national dialogue. It is clear that it should not be the last. The dialogue should be a continuous process, not an event, and a welcome outcome of today's event would be the establishment of a mechanism to ensure the continuity of such a process. The nation needs and can benefit from such a dialogue amongst its citizenry. Even at the level of the state structure, I venture to say that the process of governance itself can benefit significantly from a very regular dialogue and consultation between the three organs of the state, that is the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, with due respect, of course, to their constitutional mandates and their constitutional autonomies. Mr. President, distinguished guests, it is fitting on an occasion like this to recall that for much of its existence as an independent sovereign state, the Gambia's commitment to good governance was unshakable and widely respected and recognized and respected, particularly under the leadership of his first and founding president, Alhaji Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara. Adherence to the rule of law, to respect for human rights and democratic principles was the cornerstone of both domestic and foreign policies of the country. And it is commendable that His Excellency the President, Adama Barrow, has made the restoration, the consolidation, and the further development of that governance policy a cornerstone of his own administration. And as we engage in a national dialogue, it should not be impossible. Indeed, it would be appropriate for us to collectively affirm, whatever our other differences, that adherence to the rule of law, to respect for human rights and democratic principles is a core value of our community. For the rule of law, respect for human rights and democratic principles provide the most secure foundations for national peace and for social and economic progress. The rule of law requires us all to be subservient to the law. The law should stand above all of us, and we should stand below it. Not just any law, of course, but a law that has the quality of fairness and decency and compatibility with recognized international standards. We must, however, follow up on that affirmation of the importance of the rule of law as a core value of our community through many concrete steps and actions, such as greater public investment in the machinery of justice to improve access to justice and the speedy and qualitative delivery of decisions. We need to strengthen our dispute resolution mechanisms, whether they are formal or traditional, in order to promote stability in the community. The institutions of the Ombudsman and the National Agency for Legal Aid, and of course the National Human Rights Commission, are important elements of the architecture of governance. And they also ought to be supported significantly in order to promote good governance with focus respectively in providing and in preventing and providing remedies for abuse of power and maladministration in the public service. We must intensify our efforts to review our laws through the Law Reform Commission to make them more relevant and responsive to our challenges and aspirations. Above all, we must not give up on our goal of putting in place a new constitutional framework that promises better governance for our nation. We have come very far with that process, in fact too far to give it up in preparing a draft constitution. We've come too far to give it up simply because of divergence in views. And all stakeholders should be prepared to make the necessary compromises and the necessary accommodations to enable us to revive that process in order to have a new constitution for the Gambia. Thus, the whole range of state institutions which are implicated in the governance process ought to be the subject of intense capacity building and public support to enable them contribute more effectively to the discharge of their respective mandates. We must also invest in crime prevention and in crime management and in law enforcement, because crime constitutes one of the most serious violations against human rights of individual citizens, and we need to rise up to that challenge. The constitutional obligations of legal justice must also be respected and enforced more effectively, as well as the constitutional promise of social justice in terms of education, in terms of health, employment, etc. All these need to be given concrete reality. But beyond what the state can and what the state should do, we must also remember that as citizens, as individual citizens, we too have obligations and duties to each other and to our community. Life is not just about rights. It also comes with responsibilities. The Banjul Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is the premier African instrument on human rights, reinforces that message by providing not only for the rights of individuals, but also providing for their duties to their family, duties to the community, and duties to the country, to the nation. That charter, which is named after the capital of this country, also imposes, among other things, a duty on every individual to respect and consider his fellow beings without discrimination, to maintain relations aimed at promoting and reinforcing mutual respect and tolerance, to preserve and strengthen social and national solidarity, and to preserve and strengthen African cultural values in the spirit of tolerance, the spirit of dialogue and consultation. We must strive to live up to our responsibilities individually and collectively. We must nurture and sustain in our community and relate to each other with that tolerance, with that respect, with solidarity, and with compassion. But we must ensure, importantly, that we pass on these values to succeeding generations through our families, through our educational institutions, and through our community structures. For these values are surely the very secure foundations for making our nation a community of peace, a community of progress, and of development. I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Lordship, Chief Justice of the Republic of the Gambia, Hassan B. Jallow, for those brilliant and thought-provoking remarks. The Chief Justice thanked the President for this initiative. He also emphasized the importance of pluralism, saying that it is quite essential in any democracy, but also dialogue enhances any democratization effort as well. He also encouraged us to make sure it is a continuous endeavor. Thank you very much, Your Lordship. For the purpose of the viewing public who do not have the fortune to be present in this room, we are going to attempt to summarize remarks in various local languages. But at this time also, I would take this opportunity to inform members of this audience that translation services are available. The stewards here have the mics and the headsets, and if you need any assistance to make sure you listen to the translations while the remarks are being delivered in real time, kindly speak to them. Badi la mwelalu ngali kontong atal membe njibe kang member diamola wole mu Chief Justice Hassan B. Jallow me alon ka tele nyatum ka ke Gambia la tilingo bundala ala diamo follow ni menna wole mu ka banko nyaton ko jayi ka tentu His Excellency the President pour ñu ñonku kende ñi makang ka itandi ko nimmol be kafta ñoma ka kacha a beteata banko la yurwani ñatuta to démocratie la karola a itandi je fanan ko kacha mu kulati me alon ko fanan aka démocratie tala ka sembentuyandi aka ñiñandi wo kambala ka be sasiro ke la molu bella sako banko ñaton ko wani mol men bebulo be ñin ko kono pour isa ko muta ye lo wa ko kan kaje ko a Canada ñinna ay kuma jamalu banke kuma ñimma jamalu bara itandi fanan ko abe daniro fanan ke la mol bella pour kana ñina katol la men be ke kan pour ka constitution kuto londi Gambia banko kam mbokk yeen mi nga xamne yena nekk di déglu di leen nuyu rek di wonne dinañ jéem pour tënk waxtaan yi nga xam ne suñu waxkat yi loolu la ñoo banku fii tey ku fi jógee waxtaan mooy His Lordship Chief Justice of the Republic of the Gambia moo jiite wàllum bunti yoon bi fii si Gambia bokk na si lu mu wax mooy di gërëm His Excellency the President si taxaw bu mu def pour make sure ne mbootaay bu mel nii lii mu am mbootaay bi nga xam ne doomi réew yi yëpp fu ñu munti nekk dinañ am yoon bi pour ñu waxtaanee ay mbir yi nga xam ne ñoo wër suñ dëkk bi wax na fii tamit ne waxtaan nekk na loo xam ne daf dee saxal démocratie si dëkk kon nag mu ne mu ngi ñax ñëpp pour ñu meeg soo ne bu mu am si lii nañ ko continuer di ko def parce que dafa nekk li nga xam ne dinañu yokkal torop as a country bokk na si lu mu wax tamit mooy mbiri constitution bu ees bi nga xam ne loolu lañ commencé woon si gannaaw mu ngi ñaax ñëpp nag pour ñu meeg soo ne bu mu am si fu mu am ñëpp tiye si ñu meeg soo ne ñu am constitution bu baax constitution bu ees bi nga xam ne dina ñu njëriñ yokkal ñu si suñ démocratisation bi waxtaan na tamit si yelleef yi nga xam ne doomi aadama yooyu lañ amanteel si réew ne ku nekk am na luwaa bi lu mu la may si ay doole waaye tamit am na ay yelleef yi nga xam ne doomi aadama yëpp am nañ ko si seen diggante ñoomi neen ak ñoom tamit seen diggante ak nguur gi kon nag mu ngi ñaax ñëpp pour ñu téye si loolu ñu bàyyi si xel pour make sure ne kenn bu mu tooñ kenn jërëjëf thank you very much your lordship with those remarks I now have the honor most respectfully to invite the Speaker of the National Assembly Honorable Fabakary Tombong Jatta to deliver his reflections on the theme of this occasion. Please join me to welcome the Speaker.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, President Adama Barrow, my Lord, the Chief Justice, Honorable Cabinet Ministers here in present, Honorable Members of the National Assembly, senior government officials here in present, members of the Diplomatic and Consular Corps, my colleagues, leaders of political parties, representatives for the faith-based organizations, representatives from the civil society, distinguished invited guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, and indeed fellow Gambians. First and foremost, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to His Excellency President Adama Barrow for not only spearheading this noble initiative that brings together Gambians from all walks of life, both in the public and private sectors, but also for extending an invitation to me to participate in this crucial national engagement forum. Thank you. The chosen team, our collective responsibility for the preservation and safeguarding of our national sovereignty and the mechanisms to secure our resources, holds profound significance, especially considering the timing of the National Preparatory Committee's task falling on the occasion of the 59th Independence Day anniversary celebrations. By this act of wisdom, the President has demonstrated unmistakable example of democratic maturity and political civility in the process of enhancing governance and national development in a domestic context of broad national harmony. When we reflect deeply, we will find that the very logic of this convergence find expression in the founding principles of our republic. The National Pledge teaches us that it is the combination of government and people working together in unison and harmony that will lead us to achieve our common desires. It also warned us that if we insist on pursuing our personal goals without keeping the collective objective, we shall be divided and fall. The preamble of our national governing instrument, the Constitution, has also affirmed that power is derived from the collective will of the people. I am therefore optimistic for the future of our nation, a nation whose people are predominantly kind-hearted and remarkably tolerant. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, 2 days from today, it will be 59 years since the Gambia won its freedom and sovereignty. We will utilize this occasion to reflect on how far we have come as a country in improving people's quality of life and in entrenching a culture of democracy and human rights. We will reflect on the progressive policies that have provided basic services to the overwhelming majority of the Gambian people. At the same time, we will acknowledge where we have not achieved enough, where expectations have not been met, and indeed, where the promise of our democracy has been challenged. In this regard, I am appealing to the patriotism and sense of responsibility of all compatriots in the country and in the diaspora, so that everyone, wherever they are, sees this historic opportunity to help to steer our country on the path of peace, harmony, security, and progress. As Speaker of the legislative organ of the state, I wish to assure all Gambians that the National Assembly remains committed to fulfilling its social contract with the Gambian people. We are committed to putting in place laws that can boost democracy, rule of law, transparency, peace and stability, and deliver social services to all Gambians without discrimination. The National Assembly will also continue to hold the government accountable to the people of the Gambia through our oversight functions and represent the wishes and aspirations of every Gambian. Your Excellency, compatriots, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, whilst we acknowledge, like any other nation, we have experienced occasional social, political, and economic turbulence, threatening the very foundation of our democracy and stability. Our resilience in the face of adversity has consistently strengthened us. In times of hardship, we have emerged stronger, more peaceful, and undoubtedly more stable. The occasion of this dialogue, set against the backdrop of our Independence Day celebration, provides us with an opportunity to reflect on our journey, appreciate our accomplishments, and collectively chart a course towards a future marked by enhanced democracy, lasting peace and prosperity, and continued stability. Despite the profound animosities among political opponents, the inexorable forces of circumstance and time have consistently fostered reconciliation and collaboration for the preservation of our sovereignty and stability. However, reflecting on historical dynamics between antagonistic political parties, I must acknowledge that the commitment and initiatives undertaken by the government under the leadership of His Excellency President Adama Barrow to unite opposing parties for the common good of the country are truly unprecedented. This government has in recent times not only demonstrated its commitment to democratic values by allowing free exercise of our rights to associate, speak, and assemble, but has also admirably listened to dissenting voices, even those occasionally violating the norms. The government's outreach to opposition parties aiming to harmonize national efforts and collaborate for the preservation of our nation, democracy, resources, has been particularly evident in recent times. Let us therefore utilize this moment and opportunity in view of our history and experience to put an end to the emerging rise in variants of right-wing and left-wing populism in our politics by crafting viable partnerships among ourselves as political and opinion leaders that reflect the Gambian context in all its nuances, complexity, and opportunities. Your Excellency, the President, compatriots, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as we engage in this dialogue to fortify our national solidarity, let us also remind ourselves of our rich cultural norms and values, steeped in religious tolerance and ethnic harmony, which have historically bound us together. While some have lamented the few vocal individuals amongst us whose lack of progressive political ideas transform them into intolerant activists, resorting to derogatory language and profanities to intimidate opponents. It is essential to recognize that political leaders harboring such elements in their ranks inadvertently repel voters rather than attract them. Regrettably, social media has been wielded as a tool to propagate toxic political rhetoric, which, as mentioned earlier, undermines the interests of the perpetrators' political parties rather than advancing their cause. I therefore invite the collective wisdom of all those who led us previously in the making of this country, weaving it together as a proud nation of all who live in it, united in their diversity. May they come forward and bless us as we undertake similar steps that require the nation to pause in attention and reaffirm its commitment to move forward in concert towards the attainment of progressive, peaceful, national dialogue will not stop after tomorrow. It is just the beginning. It is the launch of the dialogue that must spread across our nation as we collectively grapple with the most crucial question: what do we do going forward to serve the people? As we grapple with these issues, may we embrace each other as Gambians who share a common aspiration for our people and our country. I am optimistic that the consultative forums that will punctuate this dialogue will critically and frankly discuss the themes under consideration and present us with tangible resolutions to better the lives of our countrymen and citizens and move our country forward. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, may the Almighty Allah bless all of you, the Gambia's peace and stability. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Fabakary Tombong Jatta, for those inspiring remarks. The Honorable Speaker touched on several issues centered on competition and governance. After thanking His Excellency for organizing such a laudable initiative, he talked as National Assembly members in their role as safeguards in their role in safeguarding the resources and making sure that the executive is held to account. He also said independence is a moment of reflection to celebrate our accomplishments, but also to discuss and chart a way forward in our collective effort to making sure that we achieve progress, peace, and thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Mbadi Lamelalu, member of Diamola, Wolemu Honorable Fabaka Tombon Jatati, me nyaton kake banko député bungola, ate braya ala tentu, ay banko nyaton ko jayi a tentu pour ka nying nyom ben sifa meng datiteng bake ako banko la kankiliya nyomoyo fenne me alon ko hanina marank ñing kaca be ke kan men kono wala mu jurolo de memo banko la fansorode ako keta warti me alon ko mo be nyanta sila ye feleke komala banko ye nyaatuta ni yurwa kol men soto nga mira fanan mbe banko la yurwa ni nyaatuta kol fanan ana raytan ni fanan ko mo be nyanta dennale nga loño ko samba ñaatum mbokk yi ku fi jógee wax mooy honorable Fabaka Tombong Jatta ku jiite néegi député yi moom commencé waxtaan bi kadduam yi dafa gërëm His Excellency the President pour xel bu neex bu mu am pour indi lu mel nii mu nekk waxtaan bi nga xam ne dafay antu diggante doomi réew yi ñi ñu jiite ak ñi ñu jiite wane na tamit ne lii mu ngi xew bokk si National Independence Day celebration si loolu tamit nekk waxtu bi nga xam ne doomi réew yi dañu war a ay jéego yi nga xam ne yooyu leen jël ba àgg fii waaye tamit ñu toog waxtaanee naka la ñu xelalante pour yóbbu réew mi si kanam ñu ngi ko jërëm di ko tentu di ko gërëm di ko santa si waxtu yi ak kaddu yu rafet yi nga xam ne yooyu la fi banku jërëjëf Honorable Speaker Fabakary Tombong. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I now have thank you very much. I now have the singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency, the President of the Republic and Commander-in-Chief, Mr. Adama Barrow, to deliver his remarks.
Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, my Lord, the Chief Justice, members of Cabinet and the National Assembly, of the Diplomatic and the Consular Corps, representative of international organizations, political party leaders, government officials and service chiefs, community and religious leaders, ladies, gentlemen, and students. A series of consultative sessions and dialogue on the theme in focus preceded this National Dialogue Forum aimed at building consensus on fundamental national issues of concern to all Gambians. It is proper, as such, to appreciate the efforts of all those who made this historic event possible. This includes the participants in those sessions, as well as all of you who found time to be here with us. With honor, therefore, I welcome you very warmly and thank you for coming. As I said during the consultative forum with all the 19 political party leaders in the country, we are making history together through our participation in this unprecedented event. Thus, we should be proud of ourselves and ensure that the event is very well written in the history of the Gambia. Although I am participating as the sitting president, I am also here as a citizen and a Gambian stakeholder like everyone else. As citizens, we have an equal stake in the affairs of the country and should keenly take part in such activities. I do not intend to influence the trend of the dialogue, but in doing this, I pay attention to the context, justification, dialogue. The team preserving the nation, safeguarding the state, and securing our has already been unanimously accepted as relevant. I appreciate it better, however, we ought to ask ourselves, who owns the Gambian nation? Who owns the state? Natural resources. And who should preserve the nation, safeguard the state, and secure? Because we, the Gambian citizens, collectively own the country. Responsibility of taking charge of it and in our destiny in our own hands as a nation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my view that, according to the team, the goal of this National Dialogue Forum, among other outcomes, is to foster national unity, peace, progress, and stability. For me, preserving the nation implies protecting the people and everything associated with them. In particular, their well-being, honor, values, and all that make them stand out distinctly as individuals and communities bound by blood or social ties, as well as other special characteristics. An expected outcome of achieving this objective is a healthy, productive, and as a sovereign state, safeguarding the land, borders, and everything directly under the authority and responsibility of the government. To cite examples, these include our formal institutional arrangements, national symbols and apparatus, legal frameworks, and seats of authority, especially for the three arms of government. In sum, this is about the autonomy or sovereignty of our motherland. It is only when we achieve this successfully that we can sustain strong institutions, efficient services, progress, and stability. Next, all nations need resources for survival and development. Such resources consist of all the human, economic, and systems of the nation. They incorporate use for production, not leaving out our airspace and the sunshine over and around us. Securing a nation's resources and utilizing them wisely lead to growth in national wealth among numerous other benefits. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, holding this dialogue forum from various perspectives. Principally, it stems from the Constitution, which says that the Gambia shall be a multi-party democracy, guided by the principles of multi-party democracy and pluralism to dialogue. It is acknowledged is a democratic principle, thus this national forum reflects democracy at work. Of dialogue are many. It is sufficient to mention briefly the people a voice, as it provides space for their participation in national affairs. Dialogue enhances building consensus and persons who hold different opinions. Dialogue comes with possibility of sharing experiences, knowledge, and new ideas, leading to understanding, cooperation, and subsequently unity, peace, progress, and stability. All these benefits are interlinked and often inseparable. Because the forum has firm democratic basis, I advise that we conduct the proceedings in a true democratic spirit. This refers to the democratic spirit of contributing to the progress and development of the nation, prompted by the spirit of patriotism and informed by knowledge, experience, and sincerity. The forum is neither meant for any party to score political points, nor for anyone to make gains for oneself. I advise that we refrain from using it to attack party, group, or community. Instead, let us utilize it for the good of the nation, while setting the stage for future dialogue, cooperation, and collaboration. The forum provides an excellent opportunity for us to iron out our differences and create a politically and socially amicable atmosphere for all Gambians to coexist peacefully. I propose that the forum adopts realistic resolutions for joint implementation. While we may not agree over certain principles, we can always agree on national frameworks or policies, programs, and projects. The reason is that there is always a common standpoint for which we can work together. Remembering that the basic principle of dialogue include consensus building. Building consensus calls for negotiations, flexibility, and compromise. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose further that the success of this dialogue be assessed by the extent to which it will contribute to enlightening the Gambian citizens, no matter how remote their homes are. Let the impact be determined also by the extent which it will influence political theories in our institutions and the school curriculum to produce democratic citizens. Through this forum, we should be able to eradicate the man-made barriers that breed ill-will. Let the forum serve to end anger and hostility, for example, between ethnic groupings and political parties, between the state and the people, and between the formal institutions and the common citizens. I am informed that there is a national coordination and dissemination strategy to make sure that the discussions and outcomes of the forum reach the citizens in the remotest parts of the country. The strategy contains planned regional dialogue forums to give this initiative a true national character. I have noted that the thematic areas derived from the main theme are all in public interest. They are not framed in favor of any person or group of persons. The preparatory committee for the 59th Independence Day anniversary celebration working independently under the coordination of the Director of Press and Public Relations under my office, Mrs. Ami Bojang Suso, proposed and adopted all the sub-teams. I sincerely commend them for their foresight, wisdom, and hard work. As we celebrate our National Day this Sunday, let us work as an independent thinkers and discuss constructively to achieve our common goal of living peacefully as a united, progressive, and a stable nation. I must observe that to collaborate and succeed in the process of any dialogue, we must activate our sense of wisdom and readiness to learn and the generosity to share what we know. Use our abilities to negotiate and expand our capacity to accommodate divergent views. Act with humility to acknowledge the truth, and if offended, have the goodwill to forgive. Be patient enough to listen and be disciplined enough to withhold hurtful speech. Putting this into practice could mend fences rather than breaking them. I encourage you to participate effectively in the discussions, and I pray that Allah bless our deliberations and all efforts aimed at making the Gambia a safer, better, and more progressive country for all of us. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Gambia Police Band. Once more, a big round of applause for His Excellency the President for those wonderful and inspiring remarks. The President asked very crucial questions in his effort to do justice to the theme of the occasion. He said, who owns the Gambian nation? Who owns the state? And who owns Gambia's natural resources? And who should preserve the nation, safeguard the state, and the resources of the country? These are very pertinent questions that every one of us, all and sundry, both here and at home, should reflect on as we take stock of his inspiring remarks, and as we also reflect on the occasion of our Independence Day celebrations. Your Excellency, once again, thank you very much for those wonderful remarks. Based on the program, we've now come to the point where we will have a poem rendered by one of the nation's favorite poets by the name Madam Safiatou Diouf. Safiatou Diouf, if you are in the audience, kindly walk to the podium. Safiatou Diouf's poem is theme on the theme of the occasion. She's, as I said, one of the nation's most favorite poets. Madam Safiatou, welcome.
African culture. Your Excellency President Adama Barrow, members of the High Table, distinguished guests, Gambians, ladies and gentlemen. I am free to express our African culture, where greetings are the norms and traditions that every Somanda all you hear is Ibe Khaira to Khaira Darong. From the sleeping dreams of our souls, the Gambia walk to a democratic stage. At 59, we still survive and preserve the Gambia cultural space that pens and cleans our hearts with a rich tapestry of pleasure. Within a tilting so eyes, we managed to defend our state, affection and action to liberate our sinking security sovereignty, seeking the blessings of our president for the good recommendations that I believe will pressure its government measures to protect the children and women from rapists and criminals that now threaten our lives, that increasingly knocks me down with questions. Mudefma matid, mudefma majahle, mudefma mai lachte. Amplifying our voice to fight against tribalism, accepting and respecting our different religious beliefs, controlling the atmosphere of this pluralized political environment, nurtured our attitudes towards the civilized way of politics, and lead into a unified Gambia that we ever dreamed of, continuous, peaceful atmosphere. 18 February 1965, our gallant men emerged and fought for our independence, embracing and celebrating their efforts, appreciating the image of germinating the seedlings of peace, to empower the youths and work to reduce the unemployment rate. That got me hooked to the skill and request to stop the road of the backway dreams and ask if the pendulum looks balanced. Building a Gambia free from corruption, smoothing not by nepotism, which I weep for my people to dispel. Thereupon I proceeded and promised to query back in my river, which is mortgaged to the foreign vessels barreled by the heavy nets that today make fish expensive. For we signed and took an oath to protect the river Gambia. We signed and took an oath to harness our natural resources. For we beg the people for their votes and hope that this dialogue will be the chosen gate that will unlock the potentials of the government aims to refurbish our hospitals and supply our destiny with numerous medicines, preserve our natural environment, invest in agriculture for better food security, and close the door of daylight robbery. Clothe our young, talented youths with proper education opportunities, deeper than us, more complicated than seeds. Let's foster the broken relationships and live by our ancestors' legendary deeds, and safeguard our sovereignty and create a balanced status of leadership, while invite you to the halam not to beat our ears with empty promises. Konak nañ deklu wante te bañ réero am suñ diggante. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Madam Safiatou Diouf, for that wonderful and eloquently narrated poem. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellency, we've now come to that part of the program where I hand over to Madam Aissatou Keita to moderate the next session, which will be reflections on the thematic areas, just like I hinted earlier on. Aissatou, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fali Fadera, and thank you for the introduction. I would have stood here and will at some point forget to introduce my name, like I did in the previous Youth Connect. I went the entire program and I didn't introduce myself. Up to the middle of the program, I realized that I never introduced myself. So I told the gathering that I was going to introduce myself later, only to realize that I never did. Until at the end of the program, when the UNDP resident representative told me that, Madam, what is your name? You still didn't introduce yourself. But luckily, my name is Aissatou Keita, like Fali actually said. His Excellency, the President, Mr. Adama Barrow, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Farmer Kari Tombong Jatta, the Chief Justice, political party leaders, cabinet members, international organization representatives and development partners, service chiefs, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am taking over from Fali, and we're going to the second phase of this particular dialogue, where we are going to go in details as to what has been discussed during the past few days. An important convergence, like we said, the consultative forum was held on the 14th, that was on Wednesday, where we had discussions on 6 thematic areas, namely, political environment for sustainable peace and stability, religious tolerance for social cohesion, security, sovereignty, securing sovereignty, safeguarding stability and well-being, ethnic diversity for national unity, media and safeguarding the democratic space, irregular migration, and empowerment. These are 6 thematic areas that were identified for discussion. And today, as I'll be introducing the session, and we'll be having rapporteurs from each of these thematic areas to discuss the resolutions, or to say the recommendations. But how do we get to these recommendations? In each of these thematic areas, key stakeholders were identified, 20 for each of the thematic areas. They sat and discussed on these thematic areas, discussed thoroughly, and the focus was to look at the prevailing situation as regards the thematic areas in question. Look at the challenges, the opportunities, the threats, and also the way forward. That was where these recommendations were identified. They were tasked with coming up with 5 key recommendations. So they will be present, each of them will come forward, at least to be given 3 to 5 minutes to present these recommendations. And later on, you will be given the opportunity to share your thoughts as regards these recommendations in questions. So without wasting much time, or without further ado, I would like to invite the rapporteur for the first thematic area, which is on political environment for sustainable peace and stability, Mr. Seth Matijau.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, Your Excellency. Good morning, everyone. I just want to stand on existing protocol, since I've been given 3 to 5 minutes, and giving a teacher 3 to 5 minutes is too much. And I'm asked to present on a group that was also with my friends from the political side and civil society. So you can imagine the amount of discussion we had, and presenting that to this general plenary in 3 to 5 minutes, well, we'll manage. So our group, basically, like the MC noted, was made up of about 20 people from various political parties and civil society actors, as well as members of the inter-party committee. And you can imagine having civil society, political leaders, and also, just political leaders. That kind of conversation would not be easy. So where we started was basically to look at, we were asked to make a presentation from the Afrobarometer findings to highlight what are the citizens saying in terms of the direction, the progress of the country, but most importantly on critical issues of trust, of corruption, of threat to safety in the neighborhoods, views on Gambia Police Force, the implementation of the recommendation of the TRRC, Truth and Reconciliation and Reparation Commission. These were all issues that we presented, and then we went on to discuss the 5 thematic issues that we were asked to recommend. And to get into that, and I think when I listened to His Excellency and all the speakers, one of the points that they all highlighted, we also discussed, was the issue of the Constitution. And the issue of the Constitution, I've been also saying that in this country, we keep saying new Gambia, but for me, there's no new Gambia if there is no new Constitution. And I think this also resonated with a lot of us that discussed that. But then the challenge is, how do we take this Constitution from where it is now to the next stage? And there we had an interesting debate, and we concluded that to build trust in the public, but also to build trust in the stakeholders, we recommend that to reintroduce the 2020 draft constitution in its present form to the National Assembly, and that the National Assembly members to discuss and amend the constitution and appropriate. And why we reached here is that because Whether we do it outside, we do it inside, at the end of the day, the National Assembly will have to discuss it. They will invite partners, they will have people to engage. So we believe that it is important that they set the space going. But in that process, we also remember the importance of raising awareness, especially when it comes to engaging with political parties. And then there we recommend that the IPC engagement with political parties on the draft constitution. But also we recommended for the IEC and the National Council for Civic Education, as well as the IPC, to lead efforts when it comes to awareness campaigns on the draft constitution. And with this approach, it will take a whole society approach so that nobody will say that you are left behind, and that the National Assembly will do its responsibility of allowing all these different voices to come before them, to express themselves, and then through that we can take it as a national conversation. Secondly, the issue we talked about is the issue of electoral reform. I mean, if you know us in civil society, we've been tracking and following the reform process for quite a long time, and we know that there are issues. And there are the issue is not more on the lack of general trust in the process, but there are issues that we need to do to help amplify the electoral process. And this is where we talk about helping to, one, institutionalizing the IPC, because we feel that the IPC, and I think they are here, the founders are here, they are in the same room, they have done a quite important job of establishing the IPC, and today with limited funding, they are still doing the important job that they are supposed to do, and therefore we recommend that this should be institutionalized so that they can receive funding from government, so that it becomes a national institution. Another controversial issue that we debated was the issue of attestation. Attestations have been one, and most of the dialogue forums that I attended, this particular issue keep coming up, and we felt it was important that we bring it here. The issue of attestation, allows for, one, issue of non-Gambian voters, because we hear that coming up, but we'll also hear the problems of underage voters. And I think all the domestic observers and all those people have seen these things, and this has been recommended, that we need to look at this and then end it. But the challenges of how to go about this was also very raised, because knowing that there is inequality in our society, the rural population are always left behind. When you want to get documents, you come here. It's time that we need to start thinking about those people that are there. And in fact, most of us are from those rural communities. So therefore, why do we have to make it difficult? So those were things that we also highlighted. But we also said that within the electoral process, promoting integrity, trust, and confidence in the electoral system is critical. But also we recommend that, and I think this was a recommendation that was taken up by the IEC representative at that, and that also speak to our confidence in the process. Publishing results by polling station, not aggregated results, because this also helps in creating trust, so that all this post-electoral violence that we experience in many other societies could be avoided. So the other issues we talked about was cleaning up the voter register, especially of foreign and underage voters, nomination fee of candidates. I think this is a controversial issue still, but I think it's important that we highlight it. Reviewing the voter registration, as I mentioned before, and also disclosure of source of funding. We do not want anyone that is not Gambian to contribute to our electoral process. They cannot make the decision for us, and this was heavily discussed during our engagement. Therefore, we need to look at how do we institutionalize processes to ensure that there's a disclosure of source of funding, which is already done through the IEC, but it is important that it is put to the public, because election is not an individual issue, it's a public matter, and therefore the public must know how it is funded and who is funding, so that we will not sell our country to somebody else. Parties are encouraged to send, and also this is the issue, in terms of the electoral process. It was noted that in most cases, political parties will send agents through political processes of people that might not be able to read or understand the political process. So it was recommended that political parties also take that responsibility of training their agents, but also sending people that will understand the process and are able to, accurately record and take note of all the proceedings. The other point, which is the third recommendation now, is the inclusivity of women. We recommended for gender parity, and in this country we usually say it is a country of all Gambians, but in fairness, women continue to be left behind. And I think those are issues that we also, highlighted so that we can get that. And So the other point was economic management, the borrowing. We need to start thinking about that. You know, who's going to pay it? Yes, we're going to have investment and all that, but who's going to pay that? The future is also thinking about that. But also we talked about strengthening the productive sector of the country. We don't need to import food. We can produce our own food. And usually we talk about this country being a poor country, but I disagree. You cannot have a 80-kilometer coastline and a full river, and half of it which is fresh water, and yet still we continue to be poor. So we said that we need to strengthen the productive sectors of this economy, and that require people working. And the final point I will not have to elaborate is the fight against corruption. I don't need to explain that because we know it's one of the problems that continue to affect our society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seth Matijau. Those were 5 recommendations that emanated from the thematic group on political environment for sustainable peace and stability. What I would also like to urge or request is you can take note of the points that are being indicated here, that are the 5 key recommendations of each of the thematic groups, so that when, at the end of the entire session, when you want to come in with your questions, it will be easier that way. So next, I would like to call on Mohamed Lamin Sane, who will also deliver on the recommendations from the thematic group on religious tolerance for social cohesion.
Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Your Excellency, Mr. President, Chief Justice, and Speaker of the National Assembly, I stand here observing all existing protocol. You are hearing from me, but I am speaking on behalf of a group, a religious group that have a diverse representation from Gambia Supreme Islamic Council, Gambia Christian Council, and Ahmadiyya Jamaat and Baha'i. But for reason beyond our knowledge, representative from Baha'i was not present, but all these 3 religions were fully represented. We have religious tolerance for social cohesion, and we understand when you talk about religion, you're talking about something very sensitive. You touch people's emotions, their feelings, their belief, and then having different people, 20 in number, sitting together, talking about their issues that is affecting them in terms of their religion, it is something very important, but something very intense as well. So you could imagine how intense our discussion would be, but this is the Gambia. We also learn to disagree to agree, and alhamdulillah, we have come to an agreement to bring 5 recommendations that was required from us. We started our session with presentation from both councils. Father Gabriel Allen presented on the topic from a Christian perspective, and Dr. Omar Jah also presented the topic from an Islamic perspective. Then we had discussions, debate, we also have questions and answers, and then we bring together all our recommendations. We had about almost more than 10 recommendations, but we are able to bring them all together to amalgamate them and try to see which recommendation and which one are interrelated, bringing them together until we have 5 recommendations that we presented on the 14th, and today, inshallah, this is what I'm going to present as well. Our recommendation number 1 was the government to be impartial in dealing with all religious groups in the country and appoint 2 religious focal persons in the ministry responsible for religious affairs who will be working in collaboration with the proposed interreligious committee. We understand in the Gambia, though we have in majority we have Muslims, but we also know that we have other group of faith in this country, which is Christianity, Baha'i, Ahmadiyya, and maybe others. But we want the government, as it is representing everybody, to be impartial between all these religious groups. And also, though we have a council, 2 councils mainly that are here, we also have a ministry, not a particular ministry for that matter, but a ministry that is responsible for religious affairs. But we want the work of the 2 councils to be easier, and when we have problem in terms of religious issues, we can have response as quick as possible. So that's why the group also recommend that the government to appoint 2 religious focal persons from Christians and from Muslims to be attached to the Ministry of Religious, ministry responsible for religious affairs. That will be who will be working closely with the inter-religious committee that we also propose to establish. But these 2 religious focal persons will be recommended from their councils, so government will appoint them. Number 2, the 2 religious councils to establish an inter-religious committee to deal with inter-religious matters and inter-religious dialogue to be continued and properly structured. We also know that when you come to Islam, or issues that have to do with Islam and Muslims, we have a council that is responsible for that, which is Gambia Supreme Islamic Council. And when you come to Christianity, or issues that has to do with Christianity, you have a council that is responsible for that. But many a times, issues will emerge in the country that has to do with inter-religious issues. And sometimes, it might be difficult to deal with it, but that's why we recommend that the 2 councils establish an inter-religious committee that will be dealing with issues that has to do with inter-religious. Number 3, the president to nominate 2 representatives at the National Assembly from the 5 nominees he nominates upon the recommendation of the 2 religious councils respectively. We also learned that the president have this privilege to appoint 5 members at the National Assembly. So the group also, because all the National Assembly members that are voted for in the office, they are not actually representing a particular religion in that honorable assembly, even though they may be Muslim or Christians, but actually they are not representing a particular religion. And sometimes it's a country. We come up with religious issues will come up, and the debate will be heated. So we feel that it is necessary for president to nominate 2 from Christians and 1 from Christians and 1 from Muslims to represent them at the National Assembly. But these 2 will be recommended by the 2 councils. Number 3, the third recommendation is civic education to include religious tolerance in the school curriculum, proper training and monitoring of teaching religious education done by the proposed inter-religious committee, and strengthening religious education across the board. When we talk about religion, you cannot properly practice your religion without actually knowing what the religion says. But in as much as we encourage people to study their religion, we also want to make sure that they studied their religion from a right and reputable sources. We want education, we don't want indoctrination. That's why we want the teaching of religious education in schools be monitored, and those that are teaching also be properly trained. But it will be done by the inter-religious committees that we propose. The 5th recommendation is the government to empower the 2 religious councils financially and legally to give clearance to visiting preachers, and the registration of churches and mosques be done upon the recommendation of the 2 religious councils. We know that we have 2 councils. Alhamdulillah, they are very powerful and very influential and very supportive as well. But we also know that they work closely with the government, but we still want them to be empowered. We still want them to be supported. There are a lot of activities that they want to embark on, but because of finance and because of legally certain restrictions that are there, they may not have certain power to exercise. We want the government to support them so that they will be able to function on their role. And also, this power includes them to be able to give clearance to the visiting preachers that are coming into our country. Because in as much as we are so much cared about religious tolerance in our country, we need to also care about people that are coming. It can also be a threat to our social cohesion and our religious tolerance. And the Gambia is known, it is an example in terms of religious tolerance. So anything that could be threat to this valuable thing, we need to make sure that we put a barrier to that. That's why we also recommend that, this one. And also churches as most religious station can also be recommended by the two councils. I'm already done. So I ended here, and on behalf of my group, this is the 5 recommendations that we have. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohammed Lamin Sane. So I'd like to urge all the other rapporteurs that are coming, you try to make it a bit brief. It's Juma today, and people will want to go for Juma prayers, and we'll want to have the contributions from the floor before we head to that. So next, I will call on Luis S.A. Alsan to deliver the recommendations on ethnic diversity for national unity.
Good morning. Oh, it's afternoon already. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellency, Chief Justice and Speaker of the National Assembly, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am the rapporteur for thematic group 3 on ethnic diversity for national unity. So the Gambia is known for its rich diversity with numerous distinct cultural practices, languages, and traditions among the various ethnic groups we have. And identifying ethnic diversity is one of the issues why one of the issues why we have in conflicts or disagreements. We carefully selected our stakeholders, and we invited the likes of Mr. Hassum Sise, who gave us some historic background, the likes of Joliba Kuyate, Paramount Chief, Alcalos, and some other experts from the Ministry of Education and other departments concerned. So these recommendations we made were more than 19, but we needed to stream them down to at least get 5 achievable resolutions. And the first one we said, looking at the educational aspect, to integrate civic and cultural education. And this aims to educate people about their own and other cultural practices, fostering understanding and respect among the people. And also to expand education, civic education, to the lower grades, as we understood that the civic education is already introduced in our curriculum at the higher level. And this will instill the importance of citizenship and understanding of civic rights and responsibility at a young age. The second recommendation is anti-discrimination, which we highlighted. Which we recommended that there should be a zero tolerance policy against discrimination of all kinds in our schools and workplaces. This will create a strong stance against discrimination based on ethnicity or any other factor, sending a message of inclusivity. The third recommendation is the promotion of culture. Here we felt it was a need, and we feel it is achievable when Hassum Sise brought about the national troop, which I asked, what is the national troop? Because most of us in this generation, we don't know what it is. When he explained, the national troop is when you have, in events like the Independence, where you have different cultural music groups participating, entertaining the country. So we believe reviving the national troop will showcase diverse cultural performance, celebrating and sharing different ethnic traditions in our events. Intercultural conferences also we recommend should be introduced. And we also recommend that the schools to get to our academia, for the school to have a day they will have the intercultural conference and in our regions. This we believe, starting it from the grassroots, will bring all the students to believe, to connect and know that despite the different cultural groups, they need to understand, they need to live as one in the country. The fourth one we said, awareness creation, which is very important as well, because if you lack the education, if you don't know, that's where the problem lies as well. So to educate the public about the value of diversity and the negative consequences of discrimination. And with this, we tend to use every medium available, like the media, our bantabas, our, the canalels. We intend to use all of them to create awareness. And to also promote our cultural norms and values. This will also encourage respect for different traditions and foster social cohesion. To also discuss openly about our caste system, which we feel this can bring all hearts together. I will often see the Jolas telling the Fulas, "Nyunyo is a papa, where your father?" And unfortunately, the tribe I come from, the Akus, I don't think we have people that we are telling where your fathers also. Money. Okay. So the fifth recommendation is empowerment. We recommend that the Council of Elders that we have need to be empowered, need to be enabled to effectively function to provide wisdom and guidance from their diverse perspective, promoting unity and understanding. We believe that if they are well enhanced, we can do away with sometimes having disagreement between ethnic groups. But we believe if the Council of Elders are well enabled, they can handle matters before getting to the police or court. So we also recommend that you support the National Council for Civic Education with adequate resources to be able to adequately carry out their mandate in civic education. We know they play a very vital role in the country, and supporting them, building their capacity, giving them all the facilities needed will help them deliver their mandates. Overall, these recommendations aim to create a more inclusive and equitable society by promoting understanding and respect for different ethnicities. It also addresses discrimination and negative social systems that hinder unity. It also celebrates and shares cultural diversity as a strength of the nation and empower diverse voices and perspectives to contribute to national unity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louis Alsan. I'll quickly shift to the other thematic group, which is securing sovereignty, safeguarding stability, and well-being. And we'll have Dr. Cherno Omar Bari.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Your Excellency the President, the Honorable Speaker, my Lordship the Chief Justice, distinguished Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests here present. I'll go straight to the presentation because of time. We are doing securing sovereignty, safeguarding stability and well-being. This has all the human security put together. It's one of the most complicated, I think, groups. I wish to begin by thanking all the participants in this group, especially the speakers and our rapporteur, Captain Abdullah Conte of the Military Police, for his diligence in putting the presentation together. The session began by deliberating on 3 topics. First, we wanted to define what is the states and also explain what is sovereignty. It was very interesting. I can't elaborate here. And then this talk was presented by Professor Abdullah Sen, who is an emeritus professor of political science of Miami University. And the second was on peace and security, which was presented by Madam Salama Njai, the West Africa Peace Network National Coordinator. And then the third was done by Mr. Molai Koli, who represented the Office of the National Security and who spoke on national security challenges faced by the defense and internal security. We had several participants, among those Food Security and Quality Assurance Authority, Food Security, Gambia Armed Forces, Gambia Immigration Department, Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Agriculture, WANEP, the Young Sani Institute, the Ministry of Land and Regional Government, Office of the National Security, Medicines Control Agency, National Youth Council, NAWEC, and National Environment Agency. So it was very interesting. Unfortunately, due to technical reasons, we didn't have the Gambia Police Force, the SIS, the Ministry of Forestry and Water Resources, the National Nutrition Agency, the Directorate of Gender, and the Judiciary. Now, our recommendations are thus. We decided, because of the complexity of nature of our discussions, and also because of the limited number of recommendations, we decided to make all our recommendations pregnant. So, recommendation number 1, the government should complete all reforms. Every other reform that has been on the line, security sector, election reforms, all the reforms, we recommend that they all be completed, and also implement all the recommendations, the TRRC, the Faraba Commission, the Jane Commission, etc., and work on completing also the draft constitution. This has been mentioned already. Recommendation number 2, the government should encourage independence of regulatory bodies by creating an enabling environment for technically informed decision making. Such technical bodies, such as the Medical Control Agency, PURA, and related bodies should have no intervention in the exercise of their duties from the above. Remember, this is brought up by the agencies themselves who were present. Number 3, considering the never-ending land cases in the courts and the delays as well as the challenges faced in some of the judgments, it is recommended that the government should establish a land court and decentralize it so that land matters would be handled effectively and quickly. It also recommended that all the estate agencies be regulated properly to ensure that land reserved for agriculture, water harvesting for NAWEC, and other national interests be safeguarded. Recommendation number 4, the government should promote civilian engagement in providing credible information on drug-related activities and invest in the public health approach to substance abuse and misuse control by financing the construction of rehabilitation facilities and harm reduction measures for victims of drug abuse. It is also recommended to promote community policing to help curb crime in the communities. Number 5, the government should develop and implement an integrated strategic framework to monitor and follow up on trending governance and related drivers for enhanced national security and economic growth. It was observed that we have adequate human resources in the security to handle crime, but inadequate materials and equipment. So therefore, materials and equipments are lacking to ensure, should be provided to ensure the security, to help the security forces, including the police, for them to effectively and efficiently intervene to curb crime. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cherno Omar Bari. Well, in my interest the gathering that the recommendations that emanated from these thematic groups was not as easy as you think it was. 20 stakeholders from each of these thematic groups, they discussed critically and looked at these issues before they came up with the 5 concrete recommendations. So next I will call on the thematic group on media and safeguarding the democratic space. And this would be presented by the president of the Gambia Press Union. Usually we will call him His Excellency, but on a gathering like today we have one Excellency here, so I will call him Mr. Mohamed Esba. Welcome.
Yes, I am a president too, but with a small letter here, capital P, small p rather. And good afternoon, Your Excellency, Mr. President, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, Your Lord Chief Justice, and all distinguished guests here present. My task is to present the outcome of our painstaking discussion. It was interesting, but very painstaking, absolutely. So the discussions, obviously we know, without media, there will be no democracy. We are the torchbearers. So the discussions were centered around the role of the media in safeguarding our democracy. We have a role to play. We had very extensive discussions on the role of the media and also what are some of the challenges. And some of the discussions were triggered and then led by very important dignitaries, the likes of Honorable D.A. Jao, a veteran journalist. We also have Mr. Sang Mendy from the Media Academy for Journalism and Communication. We have Dr. Ade Kunle from the University of the Gambia School of Journalism, the Dean. We also had people from the police, that is the Deputy PRO, spokesperson. We also had Lamin Cham from Standard Newspaper, and very important stakeholders, even the political parties representatives were there. So straight to the recommendations. First, we believe that there are still existing laws, laws that were enacted as far as 1922 during colonial era, which impedes freedom of expression and press freedom. So our first recommendation is government to expedite media law reform and bring a new constitution, transform GRTS from a state broadcaster to a public broadcaster, looking at the mandate of the GRTS as stipulated in Section 208 of the 1997 Constitution, that it should bring divergent or encourage divergent and dissenting opinions. So we want it to be transformed because obviously you have to create a very good framework. Repeal draconian laws and ensure the full implementation of the access to information. Number two, that is the recommendation 2, we spoke about establishing an accreditation system through Gambia Press Union and the Media Council to ensure media accountability. We believe we have the right to give out information to hold the government accountable, but accountability also the media should also be held to account as well. So we believe that there should be at least an accreditation regime to be looked into to ensure that we know who are journalists and who are not journalists. And we know it's difficult to do, but this is the recommendation of the team, obviously. Capacity building, we also raised the issue of capacity gaps in the media. We've seen radio stations, everyone want to become a presenter, and then people call in sessions, and then they transmit some very derogatory remarks that could have a serious impact in our peace and security. So we would like to build the capacities of various media houses to ensure that they are responsible and they understand the work better. Media literacy, number 4, which is integrating media literacy into the national curriculum to empower youth to ensure that they understand how to consume what goes to the media, what comes out from the media. Because obviously some people, whenever they see whatever on the social media, probably they might not have the capacity to assess whether it is newsworthy, whether it is the fact before sharing or before transmitting such information. So there is a need to integrate this, not only that, but also to have a serious engagement and awareness creation on media literacy. The 5th one, interesting enough, we know media is struggling financially. Okay. Financially, first, government really advertise with the media, but payment is a problem. On time, I mean timely payment. You know, we know media houses struggle to get their monies from government. So, Your Excellency, we are pleading if this thing could be seen as something that is a challenge. Also, we know during the past regime, there was a high tax on you know, news materials, and still now it is difficult to bring news materials in the country because of the restrictive environment at the time. So we are urging the government to revisit that, and by extension, because we've seen other countries subventing the media. Senegal is one of the countries, our neighboring countries, subventing the media. So we can also explore that to see possibilities how to subvent the media. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mohamed Esba, the President of the Gambia Press Union. Like I told you, I wouldn't be saying Your Excellency today. So last but not the least, amongst the 5 thematic areas is irregular migration and empowerment. And this will be presented by Basiru J.
Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellency, Your Lordship Chief Justice, Honorable Speaker, distinguished guests, all protocol respectfully observed. My name is Basiru J, and I'm the rapporteur for thematic 6, which is irregular migration and empowerment. In His Excellency's deliberations, he asked a question, who own our resources? And according to the National Youth Policy 2019-2028, the young people are the most important national resources. And reflecting on the theme, how can we collectively address the menace of irregular migration? So our thematic started with a panel discussion reflecting on the theme, and as well having a brainstorming model on workable strategies. We also have case studies from CEPRAS to give us an overview the models that have impacted other communities. So when we have deliberated among ourselves as a group, we come up with 5 key recommendations on irregular migrations and empowerment. So the first one, which is government to improve on migration governance, by extension, community sensitization, advocacy, reorientation, and legislation. So here, the recommendation is looking at the fact that should be more of public awareness when it comes to migration, and as well the advocacy aspect, and as well the legislation, because this came as a result of from the Immigration Department, which the representative was buttressing on. There is no smuggling law in this country, even if our neighbors come to the Gambia and then, you know, recruit some young people and try to smuggling them. So there is no law which can prosecute them. So, and in this recommendation, we came up with stakeholders because we are talking about our collective responsibility. So that's why we come up with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Public Service, Office of the Vice President, Ministry of Youth and Sport, National Youth Council, National Assembly, local government authorities, Ministry of Trade, National Civic Education, Ministry of Gender and CSOs. The second recommendation, which talks about creating balanced partnership with a view of increasing and strengthening bilateral cooperation on labor migration. We have understand that we are talking about irregular, so why not we create more bilateral relationship and to enforce labor migration in exchanging skills with other countries? Why can't we now take the legal pathway. So to change the narratives. And in this aspect, we think that the stakeholders who are very crucial in this recommendation, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Tourism and Culture, Ministry of Youth and Sport, Office of the Vice President, Ministry of Gender. So the third recommendation is talking about changing the negative perception on migration and facilitating the participation and leadership of government in the response measures and solutions focused on addressing the challenges on migration through the existing coordination and collaborative mechanism, including the development of a national program to avoid duplication of effort. Creating the national program on migration will enable everyone to work according to the program, because we have realized that there is a duplication of effort everywhere. So creating this, having a national migration program will help in terms of creating a balanced relationship. So, and the stakeholders, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Interior, Office of the Vice President, Ministry of Public Service, Ministry of Youth and Sport, National Youth Council, National Assembly, local government authorities, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Gender, NCCE, CSOs, etc. The fourth recommendation, providing the requisite quality and skills development initiatives that are informed by markets to create employment opportunities for young people and returning migrants for their socio-economic integration. We understand that skills are very important when it comes to developing and empowering the young people in this country. And then it is alarming to understand that according to the National Labor Force Survey, which was recently validated, the young people who are not in education and not in employment are up to 45%, and that is alarming. So we need a nation which its young people are empowered with marketable skills, and when that happens, a nation is very futuristic and adamant to progress. So the last recommendation, which is strengthening national capacity, including public and private institutions and NGOs, to deliver effective empowerment programs and support service to individuals and communities. So as long we don't have strong institutions which are capacitated with strong, with the right skills, we will not have strong programs, even if we gather here. So the fifth recommendation is to strengthen the capacity of institutions, regardless of whether you are in the public sector, whether you are in the private sector, whether you are in the NGO aspect. So we need a national capacity when it comes to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basiru Jai. And that actually ends the recommendations from the 5 thematic groups. What we will move on to is to open the floor, but we will want it to be brief, 1 question per person, and make sure that we are able to compact our questions, comments, and recommendations in order to ensure that we can leave here and go for break for Juma and lunch. So my co-moderator, Mr. Fale, will be going around with the mics, and then you can raise your hand. Yes, we have quite a handful of hands here. Yes.
The house rule is to introduce yourself and 1 question per person.
Thank you. I am CD Eskenjai, Deputy Speaker and Deputy Spokesman.
Just a moment. You might like to take it a bit slow. The rapporteur behind us wants to take in every comment that is everything that has been said here. Mr. Nana Gray Johnson is behind there. He's the rapporteur for this particular event as well. Yeah, you may like to proceed.
Thank you. I told Fali I don't have a question, but a comment on pertinent issues raised by various committees on their recommendations. But I want to appreciate His Excellency the President for this initiative He is the victor here. This has never happened in the history of the country, and we commend him. Listening from, hearing His Excellency spoke last week and today on the way forward, and the recommendations, especially on the draft constitution. Number one, the recommendations for them, what they are recommending is to introduce it in its original form, the state in which it was thrown out in Parliament. That shows, following the conclusion of the drafters of the Constitution, the entire country was divided. And for us to achieve the objective of His Excellency the President, for us to journey together as a nation, we must look at the reason why the draft was rejected in Parliament. And we must, as stakeholders, for us to give and take, as His Excellency indicated. There are key issues. Various people in terms of religion disagreed, politically we disagreed, in terms of management we disagreed. We disagreed on religion, we disagreed on management, we disagreed on governance, we disagreed on structural of the draft constitution. If we believe that this National Dialogue Consultative Forum that we are launching today is for anything to go by, we must look at the draft constitution as it was rejected and frankly come out as political stakeholders, citizens, religious stakeholders, and look at the contentious issues, because the threshold to get the draft passed in Parliament and also to get 50% of the total voters to vote and 75% of the voters to say yes is a high threshold. It needs a national consensus of all actors and stakeholders. Political parties, all the political parties must agree, and all the religious various denominations must agree. All the traditional leaders must agree. If we don't do a thorough consultation, we will not get a draft constitution, because if you want to leave it with the National Assembly to pass it, it is going for a referendum. And people's opinions and their views as per the report of the drafters, if it is not taken into account, we are going to venture into a futile agreement.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Sidi.
Thank you very much, Honorable, for setting the ball rolling with the conversation. I saw his hand up, and then I will come to you, Mr. Dawo. Honorable Dawo.
Yeah, greetings to you, His Excellency. I go by the name Mamadou Ba. I'm the leader of the Afro movement, African Federalism and Republican Orientation, aspirant to the presidency in 2026. So we are here today, more or less a contribution, just like what Honorable Sidi Njai did. So we've heard about saying the securing the nation. Securing the nation. When you talk about securing the nation, you talk about sovereignty. We cannot talk about sovereignty without talking about the security of the country. And particularly, the security reform. Personally, we've seen that the security reforms are very slow. And it is high time we finished it, and then we have our own national army taking over to secure the President of the Republic, to secure the country, and to secure the Gambian people. You know, the French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau once said, it is better to debate a question without solving it than to solve a question without debating it.
Thank you.
Just to finish, the last point that I just want to emphasize is...
We will kindly urge you, I think you've made your point, since we have so many people raising their hands.
Just one more point.
Please, we are running out of time.
The women we have so many victims, men and women, during this Clinton road clearance exercise. Most of them are not working. You know, I urge His Excellency the President of the Republic to put up a help package that will help them to revive their business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to urge us to actually make our questions and comments really brief, so that to cater for the needs of others that want to make points.
So to make it fair and balanced, we'll move to this end of the room. I saw
Okay.
Fali,
Lady is here.
highlight together she.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Yadikon Jai Erivo, and I represent Tango. I'm the chairperson for Tango. Bishop Manga talked about being scared as a Jola man. Now imagine how us women feel in the Gambia. We are scared. Sir, we are scared as women in the Gambia. There are women's health, women and girls' health is a big issue right now. I think we need, the civil society people talked about gender parity. So first I'll talk about women and girls' health. We need to focus on that, on women and girls' health in the Gambia. Another one is gender parity. We are 52% in the Gambia. We want more presence in cabinet, in parliament, in all leadership roles. We as women, we are asking to be seen, to be given the respect as we are the kingmakers in the Gambia. And I think we need to be given more space. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Let's go to the middle side of the aisle now. Okay. Yeah, you can use the mic, yeah.
Good afternoon. I recognize the presence of His Excellency, my Lord, the Landed Chief Justice and the Speaker, and other protocols observed. I am Magistrate Krubali, Chairman of Gambia Federation of the Disabled, a vulnerable group. I had keenly listened to different speakers from different thematic areas. But I'm here in capacity as Chairman of Gambia Federation of the Disabled. First, I want to say that we are cautioned by the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities that the Gambia ratified in 2015, and our own Persons with Disabilities Act 2021, that integrating persons with disabilities in all walks of life is indeed a relevant strategy for any sustainable development. I've heard many speakers talked about non-discrimination, and persons with disabilities coexist and will continue to coexist. I have not heard in any of the thematic areas where persons with disabilities are mentioned. And I think persons with disabilities' rights matter just like any human right. Article 1 of 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights restates that all human beings are born free and equal in rights and dignity and should consensuously act towards each other in the spirit of brotherhood. So persons with disabilities need to be included in decision-making processes, programming, planning, policy-making, etc. This is why our principle states that respect for inherent dignity, individual freedom, including freedom to make one's choice, independence of persons with disabilities, non-discrimination, accessibility, equality of opportunities, full and effective participation in society, respect for difference and acceptance of persons with disabilities as part of human diversity and humanity.
Thank you.
Equality between men and women, respect for the rights of children with disabilities.
Thank you.
So persons with disabilities should actually be included Once again, I thank everybody here present.
Thank you
very
Mr.
much.
Kibble.
Your
I would
Lordship.
like to remind you of the time. By 1:30, we will be breaking out for lunch and prayers. It's Friday. We can just
We'll
make
come
it
to you
brief.
at the back, but the chairperson of the National Electoral Commission wants to make a statement, and then I'll come at the back.
Thank you very much. First of all, I must say congratulations to the President of the Republic, Adama Barrow, man of the century, a member to the high table. I just want to make a clarification about the issue of underage voting that was mentioned here. I always say, here and abroad, that our electoral system is second to none in the whole world when it comes to transparency, accuracy, and fairness. And for us to issue people voters card, we tell the whole world that registration will take place at certain stations across the country. And we invite political parties to send agents there to witness everything. And we give the card free of charge on the spot. And we paste all those who are registered in any organization there so that people can come and complain that underage or non-Gambian is registered. And we have appointed also, we appointed. And I'm happy to say that the last general election, out of over 960,000 voters registered, there was not single complaint that was lodged to us that person A or B is not a Gambian or is underage. That's why on that note, I say at the next voter registration, if there is a complaint, please feel free to call us. But we do the best for the whole country so that we can always say it's free, fair, and transparent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. We have the mic at the back. One question, please. Let's be brief with our questions.
Thank you very much, Mfali.
Yes.
My name is Mfamara Jaune. I'm the Executive Director of the Bekanya Organization. I don't have a question, but a recommendation.
Can we
I
make
just
it
want to
brief,
kindly recommend to His Excellency the President to kindly engage the Gambia Supreme Islamic Council and the Rawadatul Majlis to invite the two bodies together for a reconciliation meeting to promote peace and social cohesion in the country. I also want to recommend, thank God that the Chief Justice is here, that the need to have more women in our district tribunals across the country.
Thank
there
you.
are very few women in our district tribunals.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Jawane. Mr. Juma, after you, then we can go to the lady in front. We have to make it gender balanced, and we also need to consider people. So
Okay,
one point at a time.
Only one recommendation I have. And my name is Juju. During our sessions, there was one thing which comes out, and that is in the electoral reform, that's the attestation. I just want to emphasize, as an election observer, attestation has been causing more harm than good. I know some of the politicians will not agree with me, but I want us to understand, it's causing more harm than good. I want us to look at this. Let us remove attestation in that electoral reform, because once that is done, it will encourage Gambians to go and get their national IDs, and let it be decentralized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juma. So we have to move to the other side of the hall as well to make it fair and balanced. Just a moment. The gentleman in green had his hand up for a while.
When we want development, when we want irregular migration to stop, the media is very important. The gentleman, the rapporteur, did indicate that to hold government accountable. Yes, government should be held accountable, but it's to hold the whole of society accountable, because it's not government alone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
I think it's very important, and we also particular about the accountability within the media itself. The media should be held accountable. Capacity should be built. It is very, very important I think we should advocate for positive journalism. Positive journalism will be able to deal with all these thematic areas, and we have a Gambia that is good for all, that is bringing together collective effort for the advancement of society and the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We now invite Alaji Estabo, representing political parties, to make a statement.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Let me also join my colleagues to thank His Excellency once more for the initiative and the various thematic groups for the excellent work that they have done, in particular the one that look at the political environment. Essentially, the recommendations were the issues that we actually highlighted that should be looked into, in particularly the reintroduction of the draft constitution in its original form, that engagements with the political parties are recommended, and that there should be awareness sensitization. That is very key. I know for certain that political party engagement is ongoing, and just recently National Assembly also concluded a consultation with experts regarding the reintroduction of the bill to the National Assembly. I have been saying, if we want the draft constitution to be passed at the National Assembly, the political parties must reach to consensus. It is not in Parliament that the bill was rejected, but it was well rejected before it was laid in the National Assembly. And if you want to reintroduce it and you want it to be passed, let the political parties among themselves have consensus. Whatever they resolve to, that's the language that will be communicated in the National Assembly. Having made that, the threshold in the National Assembly is not as high as in the referendum. There we need more consultation and awareness for the civil society in general to understand that we need the Constitution. The misconceptions that are around it religious-wise pertaining to the word secular should be well understood, so that when it is passed at the National Assembly, at the referendum, it can be easily passed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dawo. We take one more question, and that should be it. Just like I said, we have enough time for only one question.
Yeah, so maybe
thank you.
Mr. Sabali, before you move, maybe I would just like to inform the rest that you will still have time to throw in your comments. We'll be breaking for Juma and lunch, but when we come back, we have other plenary sessions that we have, and then you can use that opportunity to share in your comments and observations. Thank you.
Reiterating thanks and appreciation to His Excellency the President, and reiterating one word he's been using in his speech, that's activate. Because really there are a lot of good things in this country that are lying dormant that we can actually activate. And thank you for using the word happiness in your speech, Mr. President. We are very happy. Moving on to the speech of the Chief Justice. The Chief Justice reminded us of one thing that's very important. There are lots of common ground that we share, so let us not forget about that when we're talking about the little differences. What binds us together is actually bigger than the little tiny issues that we are dealing with. Thank you, Honorable Chief Justice. My question is, you gave a very brilliant speech, and I know the judiciary is struggling with backlog of cases. What I'm asking is, what role does alternative dispute resolution have in this? What are your plans? Because I and my brother Abu Bakar Jawara, we just resolved our litigation through alternative dispute resolution. And I want to thank the Supreme Islamic Council for the role they played. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Just like my co-moderator said, we'll have more time right after the break to interact more. But before we go, we give the Chief Justice an opportunity to respond. Okay, all right. After the break. So the Honorable Chief Justice is pleading to kind of reserve his response because he has other issues that he wants to respond to. Right after the break, when we reconvene again, he will tackle the question from Mr. Sabali and the rest of the audience here.
Right.
So, Aissatou, I will hand over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Fali. So we will be breaking for lunch and prayers. But right after, we will be having an expert panel. We have Mr. Hazum Sise, Lala Toure, Nene Cham, Mohamed Kurubali, Dr. Jojo Ndur Tambedu, Pastor Forbes, and Serin Falunjai. They are going to be part of the panel. So for those that are fasting, you might like to give your names to one of the NPC members outside for your lunch to be packed for you. Nonetheless, we can break out for lunch, and then the NPC members will give you your token so that you can have your lunch. See you soon.
We're expected to be back here at 2:40, please. 2:40. Thank you very much for your kind attention.